Very good afternoon to everyone and warm welcome once again. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We were just thinking about it. We have been talking about resilient systems since morning. We have heard many conversations. We have come up with many ideas. And one thing that has come up and that made us think even more, I believe, is this idea of who are the people or who are the institutions who are holding up this resilience, who are responsible for building this resilience. And then even within that, who are the people within the organizations who are responsible for building this resilience. And how do we make sure that they are supported? How do we ensure that they get what they need to build the systems that last into the futures, right? And we also wanted to have this conversation around investing in organizations, investing in people. We wanted to have it in a, if I may say, a little more casual manner than a normal panel discussion, which is why we thought it would be a chat or a conversation, so to say. And no better two people probably for this. Of course, we have Amrtha, who brings in that philanthropic point of view. She has been with an organization and leading an organization that believes in investing in building capacities of people within the sector, building capacities of organizations. And of course, we have Anantvijay here, who has been a fundamental part of building the Rebuild India Fund and talking about pushing the needle around flexible funding, trust-based fundraising, and capacity building with grassroots organizations. So yes, we will hear from them and we will, talk. But we also thought that this is not a chat between three people. This is a chat among everyone, all of us in the room. So let's flip the script a little bit and let's start with you guys, and then maybe we can come in as just people filling in the chat and giving you some ideas, leaving you with some ideas. So I just wanted to do a little show of hands. How many of us are founders of organizations here? Okay, and shall we say how many of those founders, how many of those founders have a succession plan and a second line leadership within the organization? Okay. How many of our organizations, whether we're founders or not, when we are doing resource mobilization, shall we say it is the founder who's doing it? Founder is completely responsible, or the leader of the organization is completely responsible? So we have a mix here of people who have the teams. Yeah. So who are the ones the teams are doing the fundraising within the organization? That's great. And how many of the founders are themselves doing the fundraising? Okay. I think we have a good mix of people who are already investing in their organizational capacities, who are investing in building their institutions. So shall we start with them by asking, how are you doing it? Because one of the themes that came up in the discussion in the beginning as well, that we talk about investing in institutions, building institutions, but we are talking about building institutions from the point of view of making them sustainable. So those of you who think you are doing that, or you think you're trying to do that, shall we hear some answers? How are you building your institutions? How are you investing within your institutions and your people? Maybe my colleagues can pass on the mics a little bit.
Yeah, see, actually, the first set of questions that as a chief functionary, as a founder, in the initial stage, I took part in the fund mobilization process. But when our New Life Foundations tied up with the India Donates during our floods happens in Manipur, now India Donate team, one of the guy came to Manipur, and then we do around 1 week the flood relief kind of things we done. At the time that the staff shown our staff's potential, And then he comes to in my room and we discuss a lot. And he start, Bishop, why you start alone or doing the fund mobilization and the project preparation? Because you have dynamic staffs are there and they are very fluent in English and then some documentation and everything. Why you are not fixed the responsibility to them? Why you are not working with them for the fund mobilization kind of thing? At the time it becomes my challenges again, no? And then he also sharing one class, one session, how did the mobilization techniques and how we have to approach to the donors, what the donor desire areas and the interest kind of things to the mobilization funding process, no? After that, whole my teams, no, they confine their own works, their own projects, and for the sustainability discussion and kind of things, and the FCRA kind of situation happens, at the time all the teams becoming eye-opener again. And then we, board members discuss the matters, and also we entrust around 7 our staffs, we put as a core staffs. That core staff, we have some structures. And that structures, we do that IT and the MIS officers, and then fund mobilization decks, women decks, child decks, disasters decks, and livelihood decks like that, no? And that process, no, now, whenever we are seeing that a context and the situation base, and the emerging the livelihood or any issue base on this area, I know who is the right persons to prepare the proposal, to carry the fund mobilization process, no? But the team, as a team, they sit together and then they design the proposal and they design the whole perspective and everything, and then after they kind of prepared done, and they, as a draft, again they submitted to me for the final. And I say, I'm not satisfied what we are doing that about the rationale, objective, and indicators, and a kind of log frame. I'm not satisfied what you did. And again, they rework again, no? After due can discuss and then draft it and fit onto that, and I see I look at the finally, and I also not the authority of the final the proposal the proposal and fund mobilization kind of concept preparation also. After that we discussed by the board members also, oh, the way of how our staff's core team preparing kind of concept paper, the project preparations is very good. So now I'm little bit away from them, because they do by themselves. This kind of things we do, kind of things.
So what I'm hearing is you trusted your staff, and
Yeah.
then at the moment it is you are, if I may say so myself, you're finding yourself even a little bit redundant, that maybe staff is taking it forward themselves. Absolutely, I think that is one of the biggest examples we could possibly find.
But our eye opener is that the donor India that the staff know when they came to in my office and how they influence and giving the challenge.
Thank you for that, of course.
That is a history.
Yes. No, thank you so much. But I also wanted to hear from maybe one more leader or one more practitioner in the room. How are you, of course, we talked about investing in staff, giving them responsibilities, giving them power, empowering people, trusting them, etc. But any other ways of, you are investing in your institution, you are building your institution and strengthening it. Any other example?
Yeah.
Maybe.
So I am Sanjeev. I represent Indian Grameen Services. So I have two hats. One is being a chief operating officer. I am working with the operation team and building the operational efficiency of the organization. At the same time, I am completely engaged with the partnerships and resource mobilization. So I did a lot of project management for several years, being a development practitioner in the field of livelihoods. So what I learned when the organization is growing, so there is a challenge of thriving the organization and with respect to the sustainability of the organization. The stability is important. Otherwise, the purpose of the organization, the vision, mission is going to be affected because of the lack of the resources. So then I completely, it was like a egg chicken story. So that time earlier, along with the operation, we did the fundraising. Because earlier the founders, like the leadership team, they actually used to raise the fund. But when the leadership team in the management started working like me, so what I usually find along with the partners, so what I learned from the fundraising process is that it needs a lot of understanding about the language of the different partners like the CSR and philanthropists as well as the government agencies. Second is, every organization is having set mandates. So while working with the cause of our organization, we need to also think about their mandate has to be married in my project design. So that is the second learning. Third, so what I learned while designing the program, so if we are having adequate experience on the ground, the understanding of the community, the context, the programs, and the kind of systems and processes being required for a program, then it is easier to actually convince the donor agencies and piece the donor agency and also design efficient programs for them. And fourth, I realized while doing earlier we did the bidding processes, but later on most of our programs are co-designed with the partners. So I do proactively engaged with the donor organizations. I never worked on the bidding processes, notification आएगा तब जाके bid करेंगे, then फिर low bid होगी, उसमें हम नहीं जाते हैं. So I worked with the partners closely, understanding their thematic areas requirement, geographic requirement, our geographic requirement. It's a matchmaking processes. Then during the co-creation of the concepts, the ideas and the processes, we regularly used to co-design the project, and the more than 70% of our partnership program has been onboarded successfully. So that is how we are working with. Thank you.
Thank you. And
yeah, hi, this is Sudakshana from ECF. Before answering this question, I was also reflecting with the other question that you had, that who is fundraising. So for us at ECF, we do have a small team, but then that team is not solely responsible for fundraising. They are also doing programmatic interventions and strategy. So right now, we are in a juncture where we are still trying to integrate operations, a bit of compliance, fundraising, and a lot of understanding of the program, because all of us are predominantly from the program side. Fundraising is a new gambit for us. So our funds basically come from FCRA, philanthropies, Indian philanthropies, and a very small percent from the Indian CSRs. And what we've realized is all the three areas have unique structures. So while with FCRA funds and the Indian philanthropies, there's a lot of discussions before the actual project proposal goes, before the budget is built in. With the CSRs, it's more like there is a set mandate and you send out the proposal. If it is, if both the parties are mutually agreeing on it, then the funds get released. But with the other two, there's a lot of discussions and detailing out, and also a lot of back and forth in a very good way to support us, and that's how even our program has evolved. So currently we are at this stage. We don't have a very nice fundraising landscape and strategy at the moment.
No, but I think it was a really interesting share what you just said, that one of the ways that you're building capacities within the organization is through your interactions with the donor. In the back and forth, you're learning and your programs are evolving. Excellent way of putting that. Please, sir.
Marie James, representing an organization called the Rural Appeal Center based in Kanyakumari district. So our organization was formed in 1981. By that time, the building organization means the building the people, community. So our staff are capacitized to build up the people's movement, trade unions. So we were working till tsunami in that way. After tsunami, during the tsunami, we are able to mobilize funds. In the beginning, with one aerogram and one-page mail, we are able to get the funds. Even in the during the tsunami, we are able to mobilize funds from 5 agencies. And we have rejected 3 international agencies. We don't want fund. We are sufficient funds. So this went on till 2014, 2011. This immediately after the tsunami rehabilitation work, then the FCRA people came in that you people are doing political work. So they have suspended and our FCRA. Then we went to court and got it back. After 2014, only we realized that we cannot depend only on the foreign fund. Till that, we don't have any other capacity building of the staff except people's movement builders. So then only we realized that it's many infrastructure development, technological knowledge has to be improved. During this crisis period, everything is lost. Now we need to technologically develop our own team and also to provide this other means to cope up with this present system. And also we are struggling to get the CSR fund because of these issues. Not only with the FCRA issue and also with the lack of sufficient capacity of the staff to cope up with this present scenario. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for those amazing ideas. You know, I was just thinking, even listening to the room, and let me tell you, I was just telling before we start, I was just telling Anantvijay and Amrtha that there's a lot of wisdom in the room. We have already, you know, started talking about it. There have been a lot of interactions, and so we were all very
Your
keen
final
to start
comments, one
there
sentence
and
each.
continue with you. But listening to all of you, I think, so the way you put it, the way the expectations from NGOs, from CSOs, from civil society organizations, the way they have changed over the last, say, 2 decades or so is something else altogether. Like right now, as a CSO, you are expected to be programmatically strong and sound. You are expected to scale at a high rate. You are expected to be very compliant, follow very strict compliance rules. You are expected to also innovate, adopt technologies. You're expected to raise funds, while there are also challenges that we might be facing. Another interesting thing that I noticed is how about building institutions, building capacities within institutions somewhere and somehow gets related to fundraising and funding and donors, which is also like an interesting observation that we might want to come back later. But now, I heard some really nice ideas and some really nice stories and some challenges as well. But can we explore challenges a little bit more? When you are thinking about, and I know that all of you are thinking about building institutions, building people. I'm not going to be preaching to the choir here, but what are some of the challenges that you're facing as leaders and as practitioners within the sector?
Many times when you go for fundraising, what we notice is whatever may be the cause for which the NGO is working, whatever may be the team that is functioning for the NGO, many times the fundraising gets facilitated only when there is a connect between any of the member connected with the NGO and the funder. So personal rapport matters a lot. So my point is personal rapport takes over the cause or the impact. Everything else is set aside, and things happen mostly on personal rapport between individual connected with the NGO and the donor. That's thing. And when the officer or the concerned person in a CSR organization gets changed, getting same support from the same organization becomes a challenge. So it is lot of person-centric. That's what I wanted to point out. Since I have a mic, I would like to utilize this opportunity to answer your earlier question, how fundraising happens in organization. In our organization, we have adopted a slightly different approach. Whatever trustees we have or whatever staff we have, in spite of that, the fundraising requirements are completely different or challenging situation. So what we have done is we have identified many volunteers who are connected with our organization, and the team of volunteers drive the fundraising initiative for the organization. And our experience suggests when volunteers reach out to any funding agency, the impact is more because a third party person is advocating for your cause or your organization.
I am close to him, so I took his mic. Only one challenge. What challenge we face, most of the CSR heads are from the CSR, that means corporates, they work, they ask us to reach a target. Reaching target, they will think that like selling 100 TV, 100 fridge, like that they will say, you have to do this much target. We are working with the human beings. They will not understand. They will say you have to reach this much target. That target has gone to their head. So it's very difficult with convincing a human being or training a human being that they will not understand. That is the biggest challenge we are facing. Thank you so much.
I'm also a neighbor here. So I also took the chance. So this morning someone also told us, my name is Corina Maitrayana. You know that as NGOs we should focus on capacity building. However, there are not very many CSR funders who are willing to actually build capacity. As my neighbor said, 100 fridges, televisions, but really investing in the organization itself, does not really happen.
Shall we take one more question over there? Yeah.
I thought he was a neighbor also.
And then I'll come back.
I'm going to be very brief. My name is Vishwas. I'm from Oasis India. We are a human trafficking prevention organization, and I head fundraising. So challenge for us is lack of digital visibility. That's the challenge right now we are facing. Post-COVID, most of the things have moved online, and we are trying to grow there, but investing in digital marketing is very costly affair, and that's admin cost. So that's the right now challenge for us. So we are there on all social media handles, and you name it, we are there, but we do not have visibility, and we are not able to reach out to a large number of people, though we have wonderful stories of transformation to convey, but we are not able to do it because we don't have digital visibility, and it's a costly affair. So that's the challenge right now we are facing at Oasis.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So I think we heard many challenges, and probably we'll hear some more from the room as well. So we heard the need for networking, need for people to be able to network, the investment that goes into fundraising, then of course the way that funding doesn't really allow institutional capacity, the way funding cycles work, it doesn't really allow institutional capacities to grow, and many more challenges. So now I think, shall I come to you, Amrtha, as a philanthropy representative who clearly believes those challenges exist. How are you solving them, and how can more of us find that solution with you?
I want to start by asking, we all buy shampoo? Yeah, we all wash our hair. When we buy shampoo, do we ever ask how much the CEO of HUL is paid? So that's the fundamental problem today, I feel, that we face as a sector, right? And I'm going to put myself on this side of the table because it's a vexed problem that we also keep talking about, right? If you don't ask how much the CEO of HUL is paid, you should not ask how much a founder of an NGO is paid, not for selling shampoo, but for solving some of the most difficult problems that you don't have access or reach to solve. Right? And I think what it goes back to is, I think, some interesting work that Britspan did through the Pay What It Takes effort. What is the true cost of running an organization? And unless we, and I see this again and again, Pooja, while we may sit in a room and worry about this, I don't think we articulate our true cost well at all. And not true cost for, let's say I'm an education, I may be able to tell you how much it costs for me to get a child into school or to run a school per child, right? The target number that the gentleman is speaking about. And I may be able to say, okay, for 500 kids, it's going to take me 5,000 rupees per child, so this is my cost. But does that 5,000 rupees include 5 key things, okay? And these 5 key things have to go beyond admin, right? What is called a horizontal cost? Does it include training the people that are in my program? Does it include upskilling the founder or the CEO themselves, right? When was the last time any of you went and attended a training? 3 months, 6 months, 1 year? So this is a great room, right? But you don't get this answer everywhere, right? I think what is important for us to understand is what are the right cause. And I'd really encourage for those of us who haven't seen this, right? They have a very nice breakdown of what it means to run an organization. And they actually have some great methods in which you can then cost your per unit cost, whatever that unit is, to include all these costs. Because what we are doing today is we are not building the institutions we are asking for impact from. And that's the fundamental disconnect that I find drives us also into insufficiency mode, right? Because today we are so keen to reach that 500th child that we don't understand if we reach 400, tomorrow we may be able to reach 4 lakh. Right? I think also, so what does my hope, right, is that 10% of anything we raise should become capability building for the organization, right? And that is the conversation that we need to start having, even if it is with CSRs. I know an NGO that refuses to take money, like the gentleman from Kanyakumari, if you will not put 10% for capability building within the institution. They walk away from money because they say, if you won't help me run a sustainable organization, and this NGO has become 80 crores from 8 crores in 10 years. So it is not that they have starved and they have gone in the other direction, right? So I think having that point of view and diversifying your pool, I think this audience has much better answers than we could ever have, right? Diversifying your pool, knowing that what is my FCRA percentage, what is my philanthropy? And I think philanthropy is where you can actually go and have these conversations, right? Because oftentimes it's not only about capital, it's also about the capacity building, it is also about the companionship, like the India Donates example, right? I think that's where, and if you go to build a meaningful chunk via Indian philanthropy, and while building it, wherever you go, have a sense of true cost. That would be my first thing. But have these conversations in a more open manner. This is what it will take, right? Where it is possible to. Where it is not possible, wrap it up into your per unit cost. Because if we don't do that, then how is it even going, how will we respond if the question is never asked, fundamentally, is my point.
No, thank you so much for putting that. I think simply put, it's if we never ask, we will never know what our funder was capable of until which point they were willing to support us. But I also love that you talked about capacity building and accompaniment, that this is not, when we say investment, it is not just investing in terms of money. It is investing in what we often call like patient capital, or investing in terms of time, capacity building. And coming to that, I wanted to come to you, Anantvijay. I know that we have been talking about this, that how is it that within the Rebuild Fund, how much of a difference does the capacity building, the accompaniment component make? Because as we saw and heard, as an organization which does it ourselves, again, we don't want to we don't want to be the people talking about it all the time, so maybe we want to hear it from other people doing the same thing. Please.
Yeah, and I think important to articulate this clearly, because I also have no delusions that the most important thing an organization will ever receive is actually the funding, right? And as we all agree. So we cannot go and say ki sabko only you do capacity building and everything will be okay, right? So what we are saying is funding supported by capacity building is more impactful than only funding or only capacity building, right? And again, that capacity building also, to be clear, not that the rebuild fund has to provide it. There are many formats for that to happen. There is some level that we are able to make available through sessions and through connects and touch points. But more so, in fact, and we work with right now a network of 342 partners. So more so, these partners have their networks which are able to, which they are able to access to build capacity, and use some of this flexible funding to either hire the right people or join the right programs and kind of invest in that capacity, right? So I think even when we say what is capacity building, that the modality and the nature of that capacity building is actually very different. But when you then see what happens when people, and would love to maybe after this also touch upon people who may have seen some of those things happen. What happens if you invest in capacity building, with the right resources, with the right connects and networks, is that people demonstrate an almost 2x shift in their strategy and planning, right? Wherein like initially maybe 40% of the group felt like they had 5-year plans. Now 80% are saying that they have this. Where maybe 30% was saying that they had second in line or had some level of succession plan. Now 90% people have started thinking about this, right? A 5x increase in fact, how people look at data. So if initially 9%, I think, of the cohort used to be like, using data meaningfully to drive programs, now that's about like some 50-60%. So there is a meaningful shift and there is evidence, and this is also for us to share with all of you so that you are sharing with people who you work with funders in that case, and not that the onus of changing funder behavior should lie with nonprofits, but fundamentally in that relationship, you are the expert, right? And if you are the expert, then little bit though one has to be saying ki this is how it works really, and there is evidence now out there that if you invest, it works. And I know ATECF has also put out articles that document what changes in organizations. So I'm saying that maybe 10 years back there was no evidence, now there is lots of proof.
Speaking of that, I just listening to you, I think a lot of us here would want to know. So when you go to your back donors, right, asking to give this flexible funding, to fund forward with flexible funding, what are those conversations like? What are those challenges that you usually hear in those conversations? And how do you then build that bridge?
Firstly, we get rejected a lot. So for the people who are saying they hate fundraising, I strongly feel you. But I think this also, and some of you all spoke about it, because everybody is not going to fund like this. So recognizing that some people want to see what is changing in that school, how many children are getting educated, that person is not going to, that person or individual or institution is not going to be like, let me fund flexibly to change how the ecosystem is looking, right? So that's been one. So finding the people who care about building institutions, finding the people who care and understand that the flow of impact, so to speak, is if organizations are stronger and those organizations are led by people who are close to the community, then they will be, in fact, able to support the community in a deeper manner. So it's that level of understanding, right? And so for that, we've seen actually many people are not starting off there also. So some of our largest funders who we've been able to raise this by, it took them 8 years and a pandemic to understand that this is in fact impactful, right? So that is a whole journey. And I think people have gotten on then at different stages. Everybody has a different, I will say, different appetite for risk. So the earliest people were people who had spent 8 years understanding and kind of building trust, and then finally in the moment of the pandemic were like, no, we have to change something. The next people were like, oh, this is a very impactful, interesting thing, so why don't we get on board? The third set of people were, oh, now there is evidence that some of this is working, so now can we get on board? Or now there is a portfolio. So it's been gradual. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. And that was quite eye-opening as well. Speaking of trust and the way you said, like, the marker of trust is different for different people. Like, for someone, it's hard evidence. I need to see the numbers. For some, it's like, I have a feeling that the pandemic is happening. We are all connected as organizations working on the ground. I have that feeling from inside to help them. But speaking of that, Amrtha, I wanted to just come to you before I come back to the room once again. From that philanthropy point of view, what are those markers of trust for yourself? Because when you are at ATCF, when you are also deciding which of the grassroots organizations for whose capacity building you would be investing in, you will be involved in, what are those markers? It takes a huge amount of risk appetite, and it takes a huge amount of, it doesn't.
I think
Okay,
it's a
I take it back.
No, I think I'll tell you how this journey started for us, right? Around 2008, when Amit, Archana and Anuj all started giving, a lot of people came to them asking for small pockets of money. Okay, give me 2 lakhs, give me 5 lakhs. The question became, why? Right? Okay, you've given it to 10 organizations, you've given it to 20 organizations. Now the question became, what is going on? Okay, then the word gap funding was used, because you don't put conditions. We have to meet this, we have to solve this problem. So we are using this money to do gap funding. Then the question became, if so many organizations need gap funding, what is a good fundraising strategy? Because why do you set up an NGO? Because you want to solve a problem. Now, if 80% of my waking hours is spent raising 2 lakh rupees, then how am I solving the problem effectively? Right? So that became really the question, right? So what are you freeing time for, so that what then transforms on the ground? I think if you ask yourself that question honestly as a donor, and I don't think it's a civil society organization that needs to ask the question, right? I think it's a donor that needs to ask the question to themselves. I think it's very easy to pass the buck here, right? And if you are able to ask that question and answer it honestly, where is your salary coming from? Right? And if we have to solve social challenges, and we agree that the third sector is needed to solve social challenges, then should the third sector be spending 80% of its money thinking the leadership of the social sector spend 80% of its time thinking about money? If you phrase it like that, then suddenly the most stupid thing to not do when you're funding somebody for program is to not fund a fundraising strategy. You're shooting yourself in the foot as a donor. Think about it like that. No, it works both ways. What do you want as a donor? You want to solve a problem. You want most number of people to see the solution. Can you do it all by yourself? No. So does it mean that if I've given NGO A some money and they've gone and reached 4 children, I'll give you a simple example, right? I was just looking at the data to come into this. Every partner that we funded for, whether it is fundraising, whether it is org development, whatever the unrestricted money is, they've scaled at least 10 times in 5 years. Okay, so I think we need to ask ourselves 2 key questions, right? Can the problem wait to be solved? From an impact lens, okay, you forget for a minute the intermediary who is the CSO. Let's assume that I am a donor and tomorrow morning I want all children in India to be educated, okay? How long are you waiting for the problem to be solved? If you want the problem to be solved urgently, how are we equipping the people solving this problem to be solving it well, right? So I think I'll give you 2 examples, right? So there's an organization called ARPAN that works on child sexual safety, okay? They got an unrestricted grant. They did 4 or 5 things with that unrestricted grant. It's not huge money compared to their budget at all, Pooja. Let me put this also out there. It is literally 5 to 10% money, okay? What did they do? First thing they did is they went and built a leadership bench, because they realized the founder passion cannot solve every problem, right? Just I'm so glad that so many of them have teams that are looking at the biggest problem here, that's fundraising, right? The second thing they did is they said, okay, I know I'm doing this, I can see the problem solving. Do I have data to see? So the hard number problem they went and solved. Okay. The third thing they said, listen, this is not a problem that only affects the 5 schools or 10 schools I'm in. How do I solve this problem for every child in a BMC school? Okay. And today you see Vidya Balan on every best bus talking about this problem. So they built strong communications, right? All of this enabled by very small money, but giving the founder the breathing room to say, okay, I need to do this. How do I do this well, right? And so they've now become pan-India, right? And what they are then able to do, because they have a team that has the time to think about all this, is build curriculum on child sexuality. Safety and train teachers so that it is not held outside as Arpan but held internal to every school that I need to do this for my children. I need to make my child more aware. So Arpan doesn't have to be everywhere. And suddenly you see they're everywhere. Right? I think that is the transition that you can see if you actually fund this smartly. I would just say it's smart funding.
And what really struck me from what you said, it's not the amount of money that's making the difference, it's the unrestricted nature of it. And speaking of that, can I hear maybe a couple of bullet points? We are also nearing towards the close of this session, but in a couple of bullet points, just what can us in this room or beyond us, our partners, what can we do to then be fundable for this unrestricted sort of money not from anyone present in the room necessarily, but in general with the principle of it? And I would like you to answer as well, Anantvijay.
I think the first thing is to understand what actual cost is. I'm a big believer in the true cost philosophy. Understand where you are today, what is my true cost. If I want to get to where I want to get, understand what that means. I think the second thing is to be informed by what I am solving, right? Because often unrestricted money, and Anant and I were talking about this right outside, right? Your program may need a little bit of tweak, right? And I think then that goes back to how am I thinking about my program constantly evolving? How do I think about the problem getting solved better and better, right? I think third, the fundraising muscle is obviously a no-brainer. Right? And the sooner you make your entire program team along with you able to belt out proposals like that gentleman was saying, the better off you are, right? And often I think it comes down to communications. Okay, now everybody has a child who has been put in a school, for example. What is your USP? Right? So to think about it a little bit and say, okay, what am I doing that's different? Why is my geography critical for this solution? And in understanding that, right, also then going down to say, what is my denominator? Today I'm in 3 schools. How many schools do I want to reach? Right? And how big is the problem then that I want to solve? And therefore then having a strategy, which comes back to your first question, right? So this is my today. What is my tomorrow going to look like? Because your unrestricted grant then gets built on, this is the future of my organization 5 years from now. This is what I'm trying to build, right? And that strategic clarity once you have, and once you have strong data to back saying, and what is your proposition, and you've strengthened the proposition, these 3 things together then come together to say, but again, Pooja, in my head, where I am today, a good donor should meet me there. And I'll give you the example of Quest, who works in Palghar. Started because the founder was passionate about solving the 0 to 3 problem, right? Tata Trust supported them, said, okay, go expand to Nandurbar. But Tata Trust didn't stop with money. They sent somebody from TAS to say, go sit with them and audit them. That person built out their MEL system. Okay, why? Because just like the gentleman from Manipur, this person said, I need to solve this problem, they need to know. And then Quest said, oh wow, this problem is much bigger than I thought, and now they are again at 10, 20x what they started with. Just because they started looking at what am I doing, how am I solving, how can this go into building public trust, right? So I think somewhere also using capital as company becomes critical, and how you engage. I think every donor that we take money from, we should say, come and see the field, right? Because that is what enables conversation. And I wouldn't even go and look at a new pool of donors for unrestricted money. I bring my current donors on the field. I show them what work and what transformation is happening today, then I open this conversation on, okay, now I'm here today, what does it take, which is all it took in this case, right? And that I think is a very easy and powerful way to do. I wouldn't go start writing blank notes to new people. I would, like he said, it takes 8 years even for a Dasra to reach that stage, right? So I would start with my most trusted partners and I would tell them, come, let's spend some time together and surface these. Because if we don't surface our worries today, or our ambitions today to a donor, and we only show them this is what is great about me, then these, you'll miss it, right? Because they'll say, oh, ये तो great है, ये तो सब achieve कर लिया, तो हमको अभी इसके साथ कोई गजने का ज़रूरत नहीं है. Then next time you go and say 5,000 has become 6,000, say why? 5,000 is doing so well. Why should I give you 6,000? Then you can't say na. So how do you have honest conversations? Also, I think with your existing pool becomes important.
Show your vulnerability also sometimes, and not just rosy
no,
picture.
I don't think it's vulnerability. I think it's the cost of doing business. True. It's the cost of doing. True. I don't think needing money to run an organization is vulnerability. It's the most basic thing. Again, when you buy a shampoo sachet, do you ask what it costs for? Forget the CEO. Did you ask what it costs for the R&D? And why is HUL spending differently on R&D when Chick has already sent the same money and already giving you the same product? Do you ask all these questions? You don't, right? I don't think asking organizational money, capacity building money is vulnerability at all. I think it is the cost of solving some of the most important problems in this country.
Beautifully put.
Do you want me to follow that
Yes.
up? Because that's very difficult. So because Amrita has actually laid it out very nicely, and actually laid out the process, what needs to be done. I will not try and redo that. Then I'll therefore leave us with two very simple pieces. The first is maybe a quick poll around the room. How many years of experience do you have on average? 5 years, if you raise your hand. Below 5. Okay. Below 10. Below 20. So 10 to 20 this is. Below 30. Okay, then we won't go beyond that. After that is 30 plus. So if I say majority of this room on average has about 20 years, 10 to 20 years of experience, right? And there's about 50 of us in this room. So there's about 1,000 years of collective experience of working on the ground here, yeah? This, and going back to a small point I was made earlier, this is expertise, right? This is knowing what it takes to make change in some shape or form. I think, and when I look at unrestricted funding that either Rebuild in whatever small way has done, or what other foreign organizations are doing, or what some Indian philanthropies are doing, people look for expertise, right? People look as you need to have established in that conversation that you are the expert and you know, in fact, what it is that you're doing, what is the change that you have seen, what is the change that you wish to see, and kind of why is it that these folks, this resource should be coming, right? So expertise is one, and I think the thing that I went again, I'll just rehash it in terms of trust, right? Expertise builds trust, and then it's a virtuous cycle kind of thing. So I actually don't have anything more to add beyond what has already been said.
That's, succinct and enough said, right? But, this was something I was going to ask the two of you, but looking at the room, I think I better ask the room this. What are some of the changes in this when it comes to the way philanthropy is working right now, the way fundraising or funding, rather, is working right now? What are some of the changes that we are anticipating? Or maybe even hoping for the next 5 years. I want to hear this from the room, and probably it's good for us also to hear this and take it as an experience and learning. So, anyone who hasn't spoken yet who wishes to speak? Uma, over there maybe. And my only request would be if we can keep it brief and maybe one sentence each.
Hi. So, what change you asked? So the very first change is salary parity. corporates or organizations want good talent in the field, but are they really ready to invest in people? So sadly, the answer is no. So there needs to be some collective efforts, because the minimum wages act is also not applicable for NGOs. So that is one change. Number two, organization should start considering investing in people from the day one of the person is hired or onboarded, unless and until you can't expect something out of it. So these two changes.
I mean, I'll think about this later on as well, but I think today's conversation was honestly like the best thing I've heard in a very, very long time. I think just understanding that there is a change in the way donors want to fund and learning about that and how we should sort of represent our cause better. I think it's been a great just experience listening to the both of y'all. I think I'm taking away a lot of hope from the fact that as a new leader, I can lean on donors like you all to actually fund us the way we should be funded. And I think it's a good good sort of like a good way to end the session for me and for my team as well. I can't wait to go back and tell them, hey, this is how we should write to AT and to Dasra as well, you know. So it's like it's a huge sense of like relief and excitement for me. Yeah, I just wanted to share that. I'm not answering your question exactly, but I just wanted to share this. Okay, maybe the last one.
Yeah, the change I envisage is that more and more people are engaged in a scientific and in a very detailed way. The philanthropy should be looked at as a risk capital. The philanthropy, are they going to take a risk? Because we have new emerging technologies, we have new ways of funding, we have climate finance, we have energy, greening. So all these outside domain things will be going to affect each of our programs. And we are going to be very innovative. And to be innovative, philanthropy should be looked at as capital which is at risk. Because whenever you test something new, innovative thing, it is the risk, your capital you are putting at. And unless and until the philanthropist will take that risk at the capital, we are not going to bring a new changes and a new innovation into the field.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, just one more.
In my experience, what I have observed is that in the future, most of these CS companies, they look for where they are very comfortable to implement the program. Where their unit is there, or urban area or semi-urban area, that area only they look for work. In real need is rural area. There they are not ready to support. If they only look for their visibility, and only their comfortability they see in the future, who will take care of this rural program. Not only that, now many of these organizations are having FRA, they may renew or they may not renew and they may lose it. If these NGOs, they are not getting foreign fund, and if those who are working in the rural area, if the CSR is not supporting, most of this organization will close within few years. It will affect the rural people. My definite will affect, and only urban area people may get support.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for putting that out there as well. You know, these are not questions that we will solve today, but it's so interesting to have this conversation, to start somewhere and to be among like-minded people. And on that note, because we are going to end now, any last thoughts, last one-liners, anything to end us with?
I don't have anything clever to say, but I just want to continue to say the same thing I've been saying again and again. I want everybody in this room to go back and look at the budget sheets they're making for their donors. And I want them to think very carefully about what they are putting and what they are leaving out. And I want let the CSR or the philanthropy say no. It is not our job to assume that they will say no. And if you know, after 5 rejections, you will find out what is the right way to ask. right? Because each one may have a unique way of saying, bundle it like this, then we'll be able to give, right? Try 5 or 6 things, but don't be without trying. I think that's the only thing that I'm going to leave this room. Go back to the old partners. I would again and again say, go back to your old donors, get them on the ground, and show them what it takes.
So just as parting statements, something I had been saving up, if there had been more funding organizations in the room, but I think it something for us to all take away and perhaps infuse into our conversations with different stakeholders. And this is a reference to what was happening back there in terms of who is holding the mic, right? Who's deciding, and really helping people think about who is making the decision about the issue, about the solution to the problem, and who is facing that problem, right? And that's something we think about a lot in terms of who is making decisions. And I think all of you all are, of course, very well versed in the way power flows and power dynamics happen. But these are possibly interesting conversations to even take into our other discussions with funders, with the people who in some shape and form hold power, but also may be open to sharing it and eventually shifting it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Amrtha, Anantvijay, for bringing in that warmth and that knowledge and expertise and that passion. And thank you to all of you for being with us, listening and taking part in the conversation. Thank you.